check out these stunning metallic designs. They were all created with Spellbinder's Stylized Lattice 3D embossing folders. Today I'm going to be sharing 3 game-changing techniques that will transform this beautiful folder into a versatile powerhouse for your card making. You'll learn my favorite heat embossing secrets, including a special debossed technique that most crafters don't know about. Plus, I'll show you exactly how to avoid common mistakes that can ruin your embossing powder application. If you've been looking to get more value from your embossing folders, you won't want to miss this. Let's dive in. Okay, a quick pause. Do you love 3D embossing folders? Well, here's a pro tip. You can actually get these folders 2 different ways. You can join the Spellbinders monthly 3D embossing folder club between the 6th and the 27th to get exclusive first access, free shipping, and the best price, plus tutorials and member perks. Or if you prefer to pick and choose, folders will become available to everyone on the 10th of the following month. Just keep in mind they're going to cost a little bit more and shipping is not included. All the membership details are linked down below. Are you already a club member? Drop a heart emoji in the comments. Now let's get started with our first technique.
All right, so let's take a look at our first technique. This is going to be one where we are going to heat emboss the debossed version of the 3D embossing folder. And the first thing that we're going to do is ink up our card panel. I'm using Saltwater Taffy here. It's a distress ink, and just going to basically, cover the whole panel with the color. Now, you don't have to ink blend. You could actually do this technique with a colored cardstock, but I wanted this specific color to go with my theme. And I use a little post-it note there just so I don't put down any fingerprints, because the Oxide has a little bit of a pigment in it and it takes a little while to dry. You can definitely see fingerprints if you're not careful. Now, the other thing I like to do is kind of heat set it just to get it to dry faster, and then I will go in and use my anti-static powder tool just to make sure that the surface is not sticky. Now, when looking at the embossing folder, you want to find the embossing part that is raised, which in this case is the back panel, and I'm going to turn my cardstock colored side down on that, and also of course adding some VersaMark ink. This is going to allow all of the ink to be depressed into or debossed into the cardstock, and that is what's going to show up when we go to heat emboss it. Now I will go ahead and run this through the die cut machine just so we can get that embossed image, and all of that VersaMark ink is going to be pushed into the paper. Now, when you open this up, you see that it is debossed, meaning that the impression is going into the paper. And I'm just going to get some typing paper out here, and we are going to cover it with the Wow Gold metallic, I think it's gold rich or metallic rich embossing powder. And looky there, all of the embossing powder has gone into those grooves, so that is kind of a debossed look. Now we're going to go ahead and use the heat tool, and I am going to heat set all of that in there. So all of that that embossing powder is going to heat up inside the debossed design right there. Now, I really like this technique. It's kind of different. Most of the time, folks are embossing their cardstock, and so the image is sort of standing out, if you will. I'm just going to kind of give you a little close-up there and see how it looks. And then we're going to do another technique with this, and this time we are going to emboss it first. And we are not going to be applying any VersaMark. We're just going to go ahead and run it through the die cut machine like you normally would. And now on the cardstock, the image is embossed, meaning that the design is raised. Now what I'm going to do is take my VersaMark Inkpad and just gently rub it over the raised area. You do not want to squish it in there. And again, we're going to use that piece of typing paper. I'm going to cover the panel with my gold embossing powder. And then as I was brushing off the powder, I noticed that we had some sticky parts in the middle of those embossed areas, and I realized I forgot to put the anti-static powder tool on it before I embossed it. So that is the reason why, but it's okay. Just using a small paintbrush, dry paintbrush, and just brushing off those extra bits and stuff. Then we're going to go ahead and heat emboss that, and you're going to see it's going to look just opposite basically of what we just did. And my favorite part about heat embossing is just seeing all of that powder melt and become shiny. This is probably one of the reasons why I absolutely love card making, and it is the transformation you get when just adding some heat. All right, so this is our third and final technique with our embossing folder here. And what I'm basically doing is inking up the front part of the panel. This is going to allow us to put VersaMark ink in the middle of that raised design. And as we put our heat powder or embossing powder on there, we're going to see that it's going to fill up all of those little negative spots. Now I did see that some of the powder got on the raised area, and I tried to kind of brush it off with my big fluffy brush, and as you saw, it basically took all the powder off. So I went in and reapplied the powder, and now I'm just using a fine brush there to kind of brush it off on those larger areas, or in those little tiny braided areas on the design. Now, as I got ready to heat emboss this, my heat gun actually quit on me. So I pulled out my big heat gun that I usually use for my resin projects. It's a lot stronger, and I had to be really careful about the angle in which I was blowing it because it was actually blowing off some of the powder. All right, let's take a look at all three of them side by side. This first panel we dry embossed, and then we used our VersaMark to kind of swipe over the raised areas and then put the powder on and heat set it. The second panel here, this is where we embossed the front side of the embossing folder first, and then we heat set it so then it gave us the negative space inside the design, a place for the heat embossing powder to sit. And last but not least, we have our debossed version. This is where we put our VersaMark on the back side of the embossing folder, turned our card around, then embossed it, and then we applied the embossing powder and then heat set it. Now, if you're interested in learning how to create these very cards that I used these panels with, then check out the next video in this sequence. It'll be a link in the description or on the screen itself. I'll also include links to all of the supplies in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.